Hello, everyone. Just a quick posting here of a conversation I had with Matt Bell on February 10th of 2018. We were going over my argument against objective morality with the existence of a omni-God. Um, I found this pretty entertaining. Matt is Matt in this discussion, belligerent, ignorant, oblivious to the fact that he's actually arguing for my argument every time he tries to refute it. Um, so I hope you find it entertaining and maybe a little useful, but for the most part, um, I'm going to cut it down to just the relevant parts to save you guys 3 hours of bleeding ears. But if you want to watch the entire thing, I'll make a link to MK's channel so you can see the discussion in its entirety. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Have the attributes of um, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, and in this case, I'm assuming that you guys are going to, I guess the Christian side will believe omnibenevolent, and that God does have a plan that will result in the ultimate good coming to fruition, because being omni, that's all that a God could achieve. I mean, a God has to be, the best, at least an omnibenevolent God has got to result in its actions being the best of all possible situations. Is there any pushback on any of that so far from anybody?
Yeah, it's far too anthropomorphic to speak about God having a plan. If that's using common parlance for how we would normally understand a plan, it's not something you could ascribe to God, the God of Christianity. It's only used as a kind of loose, kind of metaphorical phrase. It's not like God sits there and he says, "Okay, I got these people evolving on the earth now. I wonder what I'm going to do with them. Look how bad their behaviour is. They're just not meeting my standard. What am I going to do? I need to make a plan up here so they start behaving themselves." That wouldn't be anything like the God of Christianity.
And that's not, and Matt, that's not what I'm arguing for. I'm not saying that God is reactionary in his plan. I'm saying that God is prescriptive in his plan.
Like a blueprint for like the way
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Different meaning of the word plan. So like a game plan or something like that.
Right, or almost like a script, or even a outline for a novel. There is a direction and a goal that God is, well, because being God, will achieve that goal. So it's not about looking and being reactionary to how humans act. This is what is prescribed by God as being in the ultimate in everything. Are we okay with all that, or do we need to?
We can go with that for now, yeah.
Okay. All right. Then I guess the next main section is at least some of the Bible is inerrant, and I'm assuming you guys want to go with King James. So I'm assuming that.
Why would we do that?
Well, I mean, I assume from the circles that I've seen, most of you guys like King James. I can go in any version you want to. I don't care, but it doesn't matter to me.
Well, why go in any particular version?
Okay, well, fine. Whatever.
The autographs were inerrant and the interpretations are questionable, but like something like that.
Okay. I mean, all right, I can go with that. That's fine with me. And God created everything. Alpha, Omega, beginning, end. Everything was created by and for God through his will.
Himself.
Say that again, Matt?
Apart from himself.
Right. It was but it was created through him and his actions. Yeah. And that is all inclusive of everything, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. All right. So if we go in that way, then what we, I guess, inevitably run into is, I think that we all can agree that there can be some actions that would look on the surface to be extremely bad or evil. But the problem from that is that just like a 5-year-old who's going to get a flu shot can only see this big, bad, mean person with a long, pointy stick that's about to come shove it in my arm and cause me pain. That 5-year-old can't project into the future or understand that the ramifications of not going through that pain could be far worse. And in the same way, even though humanity can see maybe a little farther, or hopefully as an adult, we have a little more foresight than that, but we do not have the same perspective of God. And therefore, something that looks perhaps bad, quote, evil, unquote, may not actually be that. In fact, it may be the exact opposite. It may be a good thing, just like the inoculation shot would be from a doctor and a 5-year-old. Is there anything there you guys want to push back on?
No.
Okay. All right. So if we set up a scenario and then we start to test what is moral. So it always ends up with kids dying. It always ends up with, these whatever. So we might as well just start there and kind of cut out the middleman. So the scenario that I'd like to put forth, and it's just going to be a basic, I don't want to constrain you to yes or no, but if you can answer yes or no, let's try to keep it short. Let's say that there's a woman in the throes of giving birth. She is literally, the head is breaching. The kid is basically just about to draw their first breath. At that point, a person comes into the room and says, I'm going to infect this child with a disease that will cause it to fall ill and die within 7 days. And the reason I'm doing this is because the father did something that I didn't approve of. Now, I will expand on that for sure, but on that, would you guys consider that to be evil, neutral, good? And if so, at least on the good or evil side, would that be an objective case of good or evil?
It's evil whether or not I would say it's, presuming human and all that, evil and objectively. So.
Okay. Matt, did you want to jump in, or Michael?
Say it once more.
Okay, there's a child being born. Someone comes into the delivery room, tells everyone that it's going to infect the child with a disease that's going to kill the child within a week, and the reason that it's doing it is because the father has offended or done something that person didn't like. Was that an evil act? By infecting that child with something that'll kill it within a week, is that an evil act?
Yes.
Okay. Michael, did you want to get in on it, or you just want to kind of sit back?
Oh, yeah, I'm just planning on just letting them.
Okay, sounds good. No problem. Okay, so I'm assuming that, especially Matt, you're fairly familiar with this story because, of course, I didn't pick it at random. Well, no, it's, and the reason that I picked this story is, number one, it's the historical narrative in the Bible, which, if we're going to look at something that's going to be as accurate as possible, I would think historical narrative would, be better than poetic or anything else. So 2 Samuel 12:10 through 18, basically the person that did that was God. God specifically came and infected David's child because he laid with Uriah's wife after he sent Uriah off to war to die because he wanted to take her as his own wife. God told him not to. He did it anyway, therefore he killed the child. Now, that could be used as, part of the problem of evil, or as far as how do we get around that, maybe even a Euthyphro deal. I want to go the exact opposite direction, in that I'm going to argue that because of our limited perspective, that has to be not only a good, but it had to be the ultimate of all goods because God himself did it. Therefore, there is no way to view that in a negative light. So, especially Matt, would you agree with that statement? I mean, you said it was evil, but since God did it, is it good now, or is it still evil?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, the person you spoke about in the first instance, a human being,
No, I
And
didn't. I didn't specifically see. Again, you assumed human being. I said person.
you
So
said you said a person, yeah.
right,
So
and I would say God has personhood. But again, let's not get over. Let's not speak. Let's not split hairs. I don't care. If God does it, it has to be an ultimate good. Correct?
if God does it, if God does an action, that action is necessarily good, yeah.
Okay, good. That's exactly
If
what this
human
argument.
beings if human beings replicate an action or do an action, it's not necessarily good,
Okay, and
even
again,
if
we'll
that
get
be the same action.
right. We can expand that. Okay, so we understand that there are some acts which you're basically, for lack of a better term, admitting that when undertaken from a human perspective would be and most likely could be classified as evil. Whereas when God does it, it has to be classified as the ultimate of all goods. Now,
Yes.
that right there renders any and every action a subjective position. The
That
main
doesn't
reason,
follow.
okay, Matthew, that the well, we'll ferret this out a little bit, and I'll give you an example and description of why that is the case, or at least in my opinion, is the case. So now let's expand this out. If we know that everything that has been created and everything that has been done is only due to God's plan and God's will, then in the same way, when an author pens a novel, the reason that the players in that novel, their actions are considered one way or another based on the protagonist in that story, the same viewpoint can be looked at from God. If it is necessary, and it has to be, if we've got an omnipresent being, an omnipotent being, that by every description can and has interacted with our plane of existence and can do it from an unlimited basis, then the only reason anything can or will take place is either through direct design or through his allowance of it to take place. Now, since we've established that this entity, and I would call him a person, but let's say entity, is an omnibenevolent being, in that everything that this God does has to be all good. And through his action slash inaction, only good can result. Therefore, as much as we may dislike, as much as we may not understand why 10,000 children a day will die from dirty water and starvation, this must be part of God's will. This must be part of God's plan. And because we know that God's plan ends in the ultimate good, all of that has to be a good action. Therefore, from that point, we can see there's no such thing as evil. Every action that has ever taken place has to be reflective of God's will. He's omnipotent. He can and does change things doesn't change things, but can and does prescribe things in a way to fulfill his ultimate good. Again, this being the case, I ask you, what is evil? What action, what event that ever could or has taken place could be considered evil?
Any action that doesn't meet the moral standard of God.
Again, the moral standard of God is his action or inaction.
It's not. His moral.
Okay, so explain.
The actions of God derive from his nature. His nature is objective.
Exactly.
So if his nature is objective, the moral actions and commandments and decrees of God originate from something that's not based on his thinking, his mind, his views, his opinions, his plans. All of those derive from mind-independent nature.
Exactly. The second horn of the Euthyphro, so we can go with that.
That's not the second horn of Euthyphro.
Okay,
that's a third option. That's the negation.
It's synthetic identity. God is the good.
That's the negation of the Euthyphro. That's the third option that shows that the Euthyphro is a false dilemma.
Okay, I don't want to split hairs and get into Euthyphro. I would consider that second horn, and that if it's part of God's nature, it's outside his ability and is outside of his
Right.
control, which would fit the second horn. I'm not going to get into that though because I don't need it. What I'm saying
Yeah,
is
but you're not going to be
Matthew,
no.
I know how you argue, and
You cannot raise an objection and then say, I'm going to raise the objection,
I
but
rescind
no one can
the
respond to it.
objection. I rescind
Rescind
the
the
objection.
objection, and it's not
I did.
a
I
point to
did.
God's name. In fact, there's a page.
Okay, you're right,
Wait a
Matthew.
minute.
You're
Let me
Matthew.
respond to
Matthew,
it.
I'm not going to go there. I don't care about it. I rescind it. It's
I
not
do
part of the
care
argument.
about it for the people
And that's
watching.
exactly the problem with you, Matt, is you want to go down all these little
I'm
rabbit
trying to
holes because
respond
you're
to what you
too
said. I'm just going to raise
worried.
one point. I'm
Make
just going to raise one point, then you can move on.
Make it.
People can read Gregory Kuhn's paper on this.
Wow.
Regarding I think it's can divine goodness rescue from the Euthyphro dilemma, where it's this move to show the false dichotomy. Kuhn tries to show that just raises it back a level, but he never says, well, this is just he never says that attributing the good to the nature of God is just taking the second horn. He does not do that, and that's him objecting to Euthyphro.
Great, you win. Let's get back to my argument now. Show me how any action could be construed as bad when it follows the will of God.
Yeah, well, I wrote in the side chat there. Are you referring to the permissive or the directive will of God?
I'm talking about both. Either or is still God's will, regardless if it's permissive or if it is let's say active, and he's taking an active role in our realm. It's doesn't matter. In the same way that
there's a distinction between those two terms.
No, Matthew. Okay, then let's ferret that out. If I am sitting here and there's a woman that is in peril, she's being raped, and I, being a fairly decent sized man and in decent shape, see that I could either through force, through intimidation, or through even mechanical means, let's say a weapon of some sort, save that woman from that man. And I decide instead to stand back and watch and allow it to happen. That is me permitting it or being permissive in that action.
Yes.
Now, is that evil? Okay.
Your lack of action without morally sufficient reasons.
There you go.
However, if you had morally sufficient reasons not to
That's
act,
exactly the argument, Matthew.
That would not be evil.
You're right. That's exactly the deal.
That makes a distinction between God's permissive and his directive will. So his directive will is what God directs to be the case. His permissive will is not a directive will. It's when God says, that's not what I want. That doesn't meet the ideal standard I have here, but I'm going to permit that for whatever reason God permits it.
Because, Matthew, the only way an omnibenevolent being could act permissively in that is if he could foresee, if he had the foresight to understand that because of that quote unquote negative action, from our limited perspective, it results in the ultimate of all good. So therefore, his permissiveness there is justified, just like you argued for, because he knew that it is going to result in a good.
Yeah, but it's still an evil. That doesn't prevent it from being an evil. Just because it ends in an ultimate good, it's still an evil. Rape is still evil, even if God permits it for a greater good.
How? How is it any different from God directly and actively killing a child that is not even, let's say, arguably 10 breaths? Wait. Let me finish what I'm saying. God actively had to kill David's child there in order to bring about his will, his plan to make it good.
What compelled him to do that?
His good nature, his ability to foresee that without doing that, in the same way that most Christians will fight for the slaying of the Amalekites, that child may have grown to be some, horrific individual. So It's not about, was it a good action? We know it was a good action. What I'm saying is his inaction has to be reflective of the exact same thing. God cannot permit evil. God being an
God does
omnibenevolent,
permit evil.
God being an omnibenevolent being,
Yeah.
if you let me finish my sentence, you would understand what I'm saying. God cannot permit evil without having a good derived from that. To have evil portrayed just for the sake of evil, I would argue, is not reflective of an benevolent being.
Cool, but in saying that, you concede that evil exists.
No, I don't. What I'm saying is that in the same way that, no, because in the same way a 5-year-old would say that getting a shot is completely useless. It doesn't do anything except hurt me. Getting an inoculation is a bad thing. Now,
You're equivocating.
that child,
You're equivocating on the
no,
word bad there.
I'm trying to draw an analogy.
But it's an equivocation.
No, what it's
An equivocation on the word bad. The child who says that's a bad thing doesn't mean it's a morally wrong thing. It means that's something
yes,
that
yes,
That's
he
not
would.
a,
If you asked a 5-year-old if it was morally right or wrong to stick a needle in his arm,
they wouldn't know what you were talking about.
that's exactly my point, Matthew. And in the same way, we as human beings cannot understand the scope of morality any more than a 5-year-old can understand good or bad when it comes to physical pain.
Unless God has told us, which he has in the scriptures on Christian theology, God has revealed to us, he's given out decrees based on his objective nature, which is goodness, that prompts his actions, and then he endows his creatures with free will, and God foresees every free will choice that they will make.
Exactly.
And given his foreknowledge of their free will choices, completely libertarian free will choices,
Right.
he then orders the world as he sees fit to bring about his ultimate end to maximize the number of people. So where's the argument then?
The argument is this. You have just made my argument for me. By establishing that God not only allows free will, but creates free will, this entire misunderstanding, this entire conception of evil is misplaced, is completely erroneous.
How so?
And it's because, Matthew, you have just established that all of our actions, based on our subjective opinion, good or evil, were put in place by an omnibenevolent.
That's not what I said.
You didn't tell me that he. Okay, now go back through your list again, because I'm pretty sure and we'll go through it. Let's do it step by step. So number one, tell me about where free will comes from.
God.
Okay.
God endows his creatures.
Wait a second. Stop. Perfect. So free will must be a good thing, correct?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
What is free will? It's the freedom to make choices.
I understand that, Matthew. Thank you. You may have mistook me for a 5-year-old, but I am quite a bit older than that. Secondarily, the ultimate choices, the ultimate fruition of all of these free will choices will result in what, Matthew?
It'll result in the creatures making free choices, which God foreknows, and because he foreknows them, he can then order the world to meet his objective.
Very good. So it will, all of these free will choices will result in God's objective being brought to fruition, correct?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that.
Let's not cart before the horse. Not cart before the horse. We're going to go step by step, Matthew.
This is a discussion. No, this is a discussion. This isn't
okay, fine.
This
Ramble
isn't
for
a Ned.
30 minutes.
This isn't a Ned kind of. Well, if you're not interested in listening, I don't know why you joined the hangout.
Matthew,
do you want your argument examined with critical thinking?
And that's what I'm saying. But you're trying to put things ahead of where we are.
No, we're not. I'm starting with free will and what follows from free will. What
Okay, go
follows
ahead.
from free will is that God is the moral standard. So there are good things. There's a standard there, which is God's
Agreed.
goodness. He endows creatures with free will.
We established
Those
that.
creatures are obligated to meet that standard. However, having free will, they have a choice not to meet that standard. Not meeting that standard is what you would call evil or
Hey guys,
sin.
I gotta go, but I'll be back in like an hour. If you're still
Okay,
here.
have a good one, Frank.
So not meeting that standard, exercising your free will in a way that doesn't meet that standard, is what constitutes the wrong, the evil, the sin.
Okay, then let's examine that claim. Number one, does God know the beginning from the end? Does he know everything that will take place even before we were even born, as the Bible describes, knows every choice we will make?
On Molinism, yes. On open theism, no.
I'm asking your opinion, Matthew.
No, I'm getting me. Your argument says.
Matt, I understand Molinism and I understand open theism. I want to know your God.
Well, wait a minute. Your argument's supposed to be against any kind of Christianity which has the omni-properties. Wait a minute. Which has the omni-properties, and God has a plan.
Oh my God.
So are you now adding into that? Are you now adding to what you said earlier, that the God must be omniscient?
No. What we established before, which we all agreed to, was that God has a plan, and that plan will be done. Therefore, the only rational way to understand that plan and know that that plan is going to be achieved is through foreknowledge, which you have already agreed to multiple times, and now you want to push back and say, "Well, I'm not going to go there. I don't want to go Molinistic. I want to go open theism." Because you're trying to. Again, Matthew, I'm trying to make a point here, and when you start to ramble off and try to get us down the rabbit hole of Molinism versus open theism, it doesn't play well. It shows that you're avoiding. It shows that you're avoiding instead of trying to actually investigate.
Yes, the problem you have here is you say you've got an argument that works against any kind of Christian God where
First, let's be clear. I am here to investigate where the limitations of this argument are. It may not work in open theism.
It's just a bad argument.
And again, when you can demonstrate that, I'll believe it.
That's what I'm trying to do.
At this point, all you're doing is avoiding it.
I'm not avoiding. You came in here. You made a claim about what you were trying to do. People can look back. People can look back to the start of the hangout.
I can guarantee you they will.
They can look at you saying this argument will work against God of Christianity, but with certain things agreed. Right. One of the things you never mentioned as being agreed. No, you did mention omniscience, but
yes, I did.
You did mention omniscience, but you don't seem to understand. Open theists believe God is omniscient.
I understand open theism, but the problem with where you get in the same way, Matthew, that let's look at open theism and just make sure that we're both on the same page here. Let's say that I want to go from here to Dallas, Texas. Now, I have many options. I can walk, I can take a car, I can fly, there's hundreds, if not thousands of different routes to get there. I can take any of those. But at the end of the day, if my goal is to get to Dallas, Texas, I'm either successful in whatever choices I made in getting to Dallas, or I didn't. Now, with open theism, even though God will allow us to make any decision we want to, like you just mentioned, he can construct the universe to where it, for lack of a better term, tracks back to his goal.
Only by reaction.
The key is his goal is achieved either through Molinistic means, where he is deterministic in his actions toward humans, or he's reactionary, and he can do it. It doesn't matter because the goal is still attained.
We need to correct that. On Molinisms, God's actions are not determinative. on Molinism. Molinism is the opposite of that. Molinism is a middle road between Calvinism, which is determinative, and Arminianism. Molinism is not determinative.
Is it more deterministic than open theism, Matthew?
No, it's not deterministic at all.
Okay, Matthew, then you're right again. Thank you for correcting me. But if we want to take it to either extreme, where we have a completely open-ended universe where God's goal is achieved through complete libertarian free will, as you put it, or a completely constrained universe where he is deterministic in everything he does, it is completely irrelevant in that both achieve his goal. And the key is that if the ultimate goal is achieved, any action that works toward that goal, by definition, has to be a good action. If it is allowed, listen, can you finish? Again, you hear half the sentence. Yeah, you can pretty much tear down that straw man.
Because it's already wrong.
Not if it's clarified, Matthew. Again, if his goal is achieved, it doesn't matter how you get there, as long
the end justifies the means.
As long as you're working with an omnibenevolent God that has the attributes of omniscience. He can act within the realm. He can act in other ways that we may not even be privy to. But as long as what he does manipulates the situation to attaining the ultimate good, how can you look at that action as being bad?
Well, because what you start off with is, first of all, you start off with a definition of good, and then anything that falls short of good is, by analytically so, bad.
Okay.
So
agreed.
God's nature is the standard of good.
Great.
If a human being endowed with free will does an action that falls short of that standard, by definition, that action is not good. It's the opposite of what God. It's the opposite of God's standard. It's not God's standard. The fact that God can then still meet his final objective doesn't change for a second that the free choice doesn't change for a second that the free choice of an individual falls short of the standard of goodness.
Okay, and I think one thing that you're missing in this is that either God's actions or God's inactions, because he is omni, must be ultimate, must be the best of all actions, correct? Or not? Or can God only work in half truths and half good things?
On open theism, God's actions are reactionary.
Again,
you need to address both Molinism and open theism, neither of which are deterministic.
I see. So now it's my argument that you're forcing me into. So
well, yeah,
again,
I mean, if you want to reword if you want to add on to your initial properties that the God you're talking about must know the future, then that would exclude Molinism. You can do that, and that's fine.
Whoa! Wait a second. Is that not reflective of the God of the Bible, that he knows the future?
Not on open theism, no, definitely not.
So, okay, then, I mean, I would be interested to see. I guess the main thing is throwing out a lot of the scripture that has to do with just that.
No, open theists would have apologetics for that, right?
I'd like to see that. I mean, you're the one who's.
Greg Boyd. I mean, look at Greg Boyd, or Richard Swinburne, for example.
I'm looking at you, Matthew. I'm
not an open theist.
Then why are you arguing for that?
Because open theism fits the definitions you started off with in your.
Again, I'm flexible.
Cool. So either omit open theism by adding to the list of properties that it must know the future, and that would rule out open theism, and we can stop talking about it. Or you need to deal with open theism.
For this argument, what I would like to do is stick with things that you're familiar with, so you can defend it. Because apparently not well enough to make an apologetic for it.
I'm
So
not
unless
into it. I
you're
don't need to make an apologetic. It's your argument.
Matthew, if we're going to see if this is applicable, we need to be able to defend what we say, correct?
Yeah, so defend
So
your
wait a
argument.
second. So when I ask you the apologetic that constrains God into not being privy to future events, and all you can do is to say, well, there are people out there that can do it, you're not arguing that point. You're making an assertion without foundation.
Yeah.
So again,
What
I
open
would,
theists would do as an apologetic, they would just point you to where they would start from the book of Genesis, for example, where God looked at what had happened, and God regretted that he had created the humans. Because he regretted creating it, he reacted to that with
and
Noah's
again,
flood. And there are examples all throughout the Bible for God,
and
throughout
you
the
don't
Old
believe that,
Testament.
correct? And you don't believe that, correct?
I don't exclude that.
Okay, then how about we stay with what you know, and after we investigate what you know, and if this is applicable to your
I
flavor of
just told
God.
you I know both of these and Calvinism, which are not touched on, but I'm just leaving that determinative.
So you are Calvinistic, is what I'm hearing?
I'm sympathetic towards Molinism, but possibly even Calvinism.
Okay, so again, if we want to go that way, if we want to go there, then this is definitely applicable, because now we're talking about the elect and non-elect, which would now put us into a point where God not only allows but mandates that there are these people out here who will act in certain ways and cannot be saved.
And
So
still, for every single person on the face of the earth, holds those people accountable when they don't meet the objective standard of goodness, which is God's nature, i.e.,
okay,
when they sin, which is to do evil on a
okay,
Christian perspective, which means
okay.
evil still exists, even on Calvinism.
Let's explore that, Matthew, because asserting it, I understand that's how most apologists work. They assert something and then hope no one will challenge it.
That's just an ad
I'm
hominem.
Well, maybe so, but it seems like you're fitting that
Ad
ad hominem.
hominem
So
is a
is it
ad
more
hominem is a
is it
logical
more?
fallacy.
And that's why I'm about to say, is it really an ad hominem, or is it just a descriptive property
It's
of
an
you?
attack against. It's an attack against a poison attack against the person rather than the act.
All I'm doing is making an observation, Matthew. That's all I'm saying. What I see, and if that is negative in your eyes, I'm sorry.
It's an
But
ad hominem. People will
let's
recognise that. Critical thinkers
okay,
will
Matthew. Okay,
recognise that as an ad hominem attack.
yeah, and you don't
If
ever
that's
do
the
that.
best you
Yeah,
have,
and
if
it's
that's the
not.
best
No,
you
no, no,
have,
no, 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 no.
if that's the best you have to defend your
The
shit
best I
argument,
have, seems to be kind of interesting, because you do not want to address it in your
I'm
flavor
happy to
of.
address it. I've raised the
Let's go. Let's go.
Let's start.
Show
Let,
me. I'm trying to get there, Matthew. Here's
yeah,
the thing. You're saying that God knows the future. God has constructed a universe in a way to bring about the ultimate of all goods.
yeah.
We have a God that is omnibenevolent. Therefore, it would follow that every action God takes, either direct action or inaction, must be a good action.
Incorrect.
So,
That doesn't
okay, show me how God can act evil.
That's non sequitur reason. You can just use analogies. It's like saying, let's
Show
say
me.
there's, yeah, and well, okay, let's just walk it through as I was trying to do before
Please
you
do.
interrupted. So you have this objective standard of goodness. That's God's nature. From God's nature comes God's actions and his decrees to us. God endows human beings with free will, or in fact, not just human beings, but the angelic host with free will. And by virtue of endowing human beings with free will,
Whoa.
God allows for humans to make a choice, which is libertarian free, that does not meet his standard. Anything
Okay,
that does not meet, no, wait a minute. Anything that does
anything
not
doesn't meet
meet,
his God's standard must be evil. I've heard this 4 times now.
anything that
Thank
does
you.
not, well, the problem is you haven't addressed it. That's why you keep
I'm trying to.
overtalk. That's why you keep trying to
You're
overtalk every time we get there, as you're doing now.
okay. I finished. Sorry. Go ahead.
So by virtue of that, any action, free will action, choice made by a human being that results in an action that falls below the standard set by God based on his nature is by definition evil. That means if Adam and Eve, if they freely choose, if they're given a decree from God, do not eat from that tree there, that's the standard being set by God. If they choose freely to disobey that, that is evil. The fact that God can then bring good from that evil doesn't negate in the slightest that that's an evil act, and by evil act I mean there something that falls short of the standard of God and his decrees. That's just analytically true. That just follows from definitions. That if something doesn't meet the standard set by God, it is evil.
I agree.
You're saying that if God gives commands and people disobey them by exercising their free choice, that's not evil, that's
No,
good.
that's not what I'm saying.
So is it evil?
No, again, that's
So
not
what
what
is
I.
it then? It's either good or evil.
No. It's good.
Morally speaking.
Can I finish? You asked me a question. Can I answer it?
What is it?
Here's the problem, and I think the thing that you're overlooking here is that the standard you're saying set by God is the action that you would consider to be evil. And what I mean by this is this. Was Pharaoh's actions evil after God, through his will, through his plan, prescribed Pharaoh's role? Well, if we look at it, in reality, for the most part, God knew what Pharaoh was going to do in the same way that he knew what Eve was going to do. Because
God
again,
free will choices they were going to make.
Right, exactly. And he made them in such a way, the beginning from the end, that those actions would take place. It is part of his prescribed plan.
Absolutely not.
Okay,
That's
so
not-
wait.
that's-
Okay, so
wait a
let me
minute,
understand.
wait a minute,
That's
wait a
where
minute.
then I got a
So
question on that.
That's inconsistent with Molinism. No Molinist would say, yes, you're right.
Again, you telling me you're not a Molinist.
I told you I'm sympathetic to Molinism and Calvinism.
Okay, well, if you're in between those two, then we can play both. We can play with both of them.
But what I'm
Maybe
saying,
this is okay.
Your argument. If you were having this discussion with a committed, informed Molinist right now, they would be objecting to what you just said. So
Okay, in what way?
Because that's not descriptive of what God does. God doesn't prescribe the actions. The actions are free by the human being. God foreknows those actions and everything else they could have chosen. And based on the foreknowledge of the action that he knows they would take, he so orders the world. So the ordering of the world to bring about his goal is based on foreknowledge of free choices made by every creature living on the planet. It's not done by determining their actions based on their foreknowledge, which would be Calvinism.
Okay, and again, can God take half measures? Is God omnibenevolent? Is he going to, in short, is God going to make the best choices to be as loving and caring to as many individuals or as many of his chosen individuals as possible?
God, within the parameters of what he's endowed those creatures with, which is free will.
Okay, well, wait a second. So now we're constraining God?
God constrains how he gets about his objective by what he does. By giving human beings free will, that means, wait a minute, let's define free will here. Free will is to make a choice freely without any external restraint or cause.
I agree.
Right. So if humans are endowed with free will, and God gives a command out based on his good nature, based on his omnibenevolent nature, his complete goodness, and he gives a command out, do this, and someone doesn't do that, that is not meeting the standard set by God. It's evil. It's sin.
Matt, you're basically what you're doing is you're trying to play both sides of the fence. On one hand, what you're saying is, well, let me finish and maybe you'll understand what I'm saying. Number one, what God apparently has is this plan that will come to fruition, and through all of his actions, including the creation of free will, each of us have a role to play, even though it is through our free will. It will end up where God has designed it to go. So on that end of it, wait. But then on the other hand of it, you want to sit back and act as though God is this ignorant, deistic type being
Absolutely not.
that has, wait, well, that's how you're coloring
That's
him.
not what I presented at all.
So, okay, explain to me then, Matthew, if God is not, well, okay, then, all right, I'm not going to say that. If that's not what you're saying, I'm not going to fight against that, okay? So let's go back to this idea of God creating a realm, a reality, to achieve this goal of ultimate goodness, whatever that is. Each of us have a role to play in that. He knows the beginning from the end. He knows what each one of us will do, even though we are given complete free will. He knows the choices we will make. And therefore, our roles, even though we do it from a free will standpoint, are set, let's say. They are known by God.
Known is not equal to being set. So
Okay,
what you're
again,
trying to do is
wait.
you're trying to bring determinism into something that is non-deterministic, which is Molinism.
Okay, and again,
In Molinism, God has not determined what choices an individual will make. He knows what they're going to make, but he doesn't determine it in any way.
I understand that, Matt, and I'm not trying to do that.
So again, the point being made to you, if a creature endowed with free will is confronted with the decrees of God, which are predicated on his objective,
Matt, you've said it 4 times,
and they depart from that, what would you
then
call
it's got to
that
be
action?
evil.
No, what would you? The question is this: what would you call that action? Is it a departure from God's standard?
No.
Okay,
and that's where you're missing. Okay. That's where you're missing the boat. Wait a second. Stop. You asked me a question. Let me defend that point.
I want to flesh that out a bit.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to show you why I said it is part of God's prescription.
It's not part of God's prescription. It can't be if it's a free choice. How can it be part of God? How can God prescribe that action?
I'll show you.
Yeah, the thing is, you're not letting free discussion flow. You're trying to definitely rescue a bad argument from destruction.
Matthew, I'm trying to answer your question is what I'm trying to do.
You're not letting free discussion flow. You're inhibiting free discussion.
Again, I would say go back and let's time who's talked more here, and we'll see who's quelling the conversation.
That would be you.
Okay. When you're ready for the answer, I'll give it to you. Until then, go ahead and continue your ramble.
Yeah. So you agree that this God you're talking about that you've described, they must have the omni properties, one of which is omnibenevolence, right?
Correct.
Which is a maximal goodness.
Correct.
And you accept that can be rooted in the nature of God.
I'll grant that.
It's necessarily the case. Okay?
Granted.
Okay. So God is necessarily good by nature. From that good nature, God creates creatures. He makes creatures. And he endows them with free will. Free will being the ability to make free choices not causally determined by any outside force, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then God, so let's say one of these, we'll just take one of these decrees based on God's objectively good nature is you shall not kill. Okay? Right. That's the standard being set, right? One of his creatures then kills someone. You're saying, so are you saying that person has or has not met the standard set by God?
I would say that from the limited information you got, I have no way of determining if that was good or evil.
Okay, so God sets the standard, and from the standard he gives out decree, right? You're with me
Yes, he
so
said,
far on that?
thou shalt not kill.
Yeah,
Yes, I
do
understand.
not kill. Under any circumstances, okay, we're not talking about the Bible here, just that is a decree. Under no circumstances will you kill. Never kill.
If that was the decree and someone killed, it was, but that's not our
Okay,
universe.
so
So
let's say
okay.
then that God gives out a different decree then, which he has given out according to Christian theology. You shall not murder.
Okay.
And then someone murders.
Okay.
Have they met the standard set by God based on his objective nature, or have they fell short of that standard?
Again, if the role, okay, well, I'll answer the question first, and then I want to come back with a question for you. So, if the role that God has them play in his
That's determinism.
No, it's not, Matthew. If they have free will and he knows in the way that they construct them that their ability and their circumstances will result in this, even though it is a free will choice.
Is
It
the
will,
free will choice? Is it within the will of God or without the will of God?
okay, that's a great question. Is God's plan, is what God is constructing, is what God is doing, is that his will or is it outside his will?
That's his will.
Thank you. Is everything that has been and will be constructed, including humanity and free will, and anything that is driving our decisions one way or another, free will or not, was that created by God?
No. God
Okay,
cannot create a free will choice.
you just
The
said that he
agent,
endowed us. Wait a
the,
second.
the,
If he
the
endows
agent
us
is
with the
responsible.
ability,
By definition, an agent is responsible for their own choice. God cannot set that.
I'm not arguing against that. I don't understand why you
Right.
can't
So if it's
follow
a free choice, by an agent and God's given a decree, you shall do no murder, and someone murders, this is not rocket science. They have not met
I
the
agree. I
standard.
don't understand why this is so
Let
difficult
me
for
give you
you.
an analogy then. Let's say that the state that you live in sets a law based on
Yep.
some alleged objective standard. Do not drive more than 70 miles an hour on the freeway, and you drive at
Right.
80 miles an hour. Have you
Right.
broken the law? Yes, you have.
A subjective law I have, you're right.
Whether it be subjective or not subjective, you've broken the law.
No,
Of
okay.
course.
Then
Right.
the
So
law itself,
it's not hard to understand if there's a standard set there
wait a second.
by
Wait a second, Matthew.
anything.
Wait a
If
second,
there's a
Matthew.
standard set,
Let me finish. Can I please finish what I was going when you asked me if I broke the law? Because I had more to add to that.
yeah, I'm sure you do.
Right, because if I drive 80 miles an hour and my child is bleeding in the back seat, and by driving 80 miles an hour, I make it to the emergency room
You
in
still
time to
broke the
say,
law.
listen to me. Yes, when I broke the law, I did it in order to create a good situation. And that's exactly what I'm saying God is prescribing by
Okay.
making evil, which
So,
means,
did you break the law?
yes, I broke the law.
Okay.
Did I do good?
Ultimate, your motivation. What you're confusing is
No, it's not motivation.
your motivation to break the law with the fact that you broke the law. So if let's say you were stopped by the police there, right? And the police the police for whatever reason took you to court for that. They never believed you, right?
Right.
They took you to court and you were able to give your side of the story.
Yep.
The judge would not say, you know what, you did not break the law there because your ultimate goal was good. The judge would say, hey, you broke the law there, but there was mitigating reasons for you doing so.
Exactly my point. Thank
You
you for
still broke
arguing
the law.
exactly. Yes,
still,
and you are arguing exactly for my argument.
But wait a minute. No, I'm not. You still
Yes,
broke
you
the
are,
law.
Matthew. You don't know it, but you are.
Okay, did you still break the law?
Did I do a good thing?
Answer my question and I'll answer yours.
I've
Did
already
you
answered it.
still-
I've answered it. Matthew, I've answered
And the
it
answer
3
to that is
times.
yes.
Your inability to hear me does not mean I didn't answer it. Yes,
and
I
your
broke
answer
the
to-
law.
Okay, which
Yes,
means,
I broke the
so
law.
therefore, if we take the analogy back from there to people sinning against God, they
Right.
sinned. They did evil.
Whoa, stop
They
there.
they broke the
Whoa, stop there. You made
They
2
fell
claims,
short.
Matthew.
They
You
fell
made
short. They fell short of the standard set by
No.
God.
No. Here's
Okay,
the thing.
God sets the
Let me
standard. Oh my God,
finish.
you're a fucking
Again.
idiot.
No, you're the idiot,
You're just
Matthew, because here's the
fucking
thing.
idiot.
Wait, you want to talk about conflating? You have just conflated sin
What a
with
fucking
evil.
idiot. On
Yeah.
Christian theology.
Who's at home now? Who's at home now, Matthew? Who's at home now, Matthew?
Insulting a person is
Again,
not an ad
you get
hominem.
boxed in. This is exactly what I expect from you. Every time you start to get boxed in, you start to ramble and talk over. You are the biggest coward I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, on Christian theology,
Keep going.
the target of your argument is supposed
Go
to be
ahead.
something like Christianity.
It
On
is. It's exactly Christianity.
There is sin and evil are synonymous.
Oh, no,
Yes, they
sir.
are. Sin and evil are both falling short of the standard of God's goodness. That's what they are on Christian theology.
And I'm the idiot. Okay.
If you don't know that, then you don't know the first thing about Christian theology. An act is sinful and it's evil. Give me an example of a sinful action that's not evil on Christian theology.
Oh, well, I don't know. Let's say.
There is none.
Oh, really?
Yeah, give me one.
I think that I remember a guy who.
Give me an example.
I'm giving you one, Matthew. It's the problem is your mouth won't stop long enough to allow your ears to work. The old adage of you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you should use them in that ratio makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to. I would say that the selling out of the Christ, the Savior, the man who completely, apparently, did everything he possibly could to ensure that us fallen sinners have a place in heaven, or at least the ability to get a place in heaven, the selling out of that individual would be a sinful act. The problem with that, though, is without that person committing that sinful act, none of us could be saved.
Okay, are you referring to Judas Iscariot there?
Yes, I am.
And
here's the thing.
Wait a minute. What did Jesus say about Judas Iscariot? This is what Jesus said about Judas Iscariot, that he would go to the place prepared for him.
Exactly my point, man. Thank you. Exactly.
Not a good place. Not a good place. A bad place.
Matthew, you're proving my point. How can you do this and not get it?
Give us the logic.
I'm trying to, but you keep cutting me off.
What's interesting is that this argument that you've constructed, there's no syllogism for it. There's not a formally presented argument.
I can give you
It's
that. If you'd like it, we can go. Let's go. P1. P1.
Yeah, go ahead. Post it in the side chat.
Okay. Hold on. Let me copy it and paste it. Side chat right here. And again, now that I've got you boxed in, you start to basically run.
Somebody not understanding that
no,
analogy.
What it is,
Matthew. Analogy. If there's
I tried to show you that Judas is a person who committed not only a sin, but probably arguably one of the worst sins you possibly could ever commit, that resulted in the God's plan coming to fruition.
A good act then, right?
It has to be you're telling me the salvation of the human race is not a good act in the eyes of God?
Yeah, wait a minute. Are you familiar with this?
There's your formal argument.
Yeah, okay. It's a fucked up argument. Are you familiar with
I'm still waiting to see why.
Are you familiar with the story of Joseph in the Old Testament?
Yeah, Matthew, I am.
So just to go very quickly through it,
again,
Joseph
change gears because
I'm not
change gears because you can't defend
perfect illustration. So Joseph, his brothers were jealous of them, of him, because he was the favourite of his sons. They beat him up. They cast him away to the wayside. They done all sorts of horrible things for it. Then what happens is at the end of that, basically when they come together again, his brothers are scared from him, and he says, no, what you did to me was evil, but what you intended as evil for me, God has made good. Now,
Right.
does that mean that the actions they took were not evil and sinful? The actions they took were sinful and evil.
Okay,
The fact is, God was still able to bring about his objective, even with their actions, which were not in conformity to the standards set by God.
Wait a second. And again, Matthew, you seem to be forgetting this little problem that God can't work in half measures. You seem to want to make God deistic at certain times with
Absolutely not. I'm referring to the God of the God that has the properties outlined in the initial statement by you.
If you're saying that Joseph's brothers acted in a way to which God was not present, God did not have a hand in constructing.
Incorrect. Not what I'm saying at all.
Well, then God did create that situation.
No, he didn't create the situation. That's determinism again.
See, that's what I'm saying, Matthew. When I say that God either's creating the situation through his omnipotence and omni-traits and omnibenevolence, most importantly, in my opinion, he's either creating this situation in order to allow the good to be derived from that situation, or, as you seem to want to argue half the time, God sits back, watches what happens, and then reacts to that. That, at least in the time when he is sitting back and not interacting with humanity, could be colored as deistic.
It's not deistic. God, I mean, you don't understand. A deistic God doesn't have omnibenevolence, doesn't have omniscience, doesn't have omnipotence. None of those properties.
Again,
none of those properties.
I can guarantee you I can find deistic. I guarantee you I can find.
None of those properties are commonly designated to deism. You seem to be confusing the God of classical theism with the God of deism. Those properties, the omni properties, are present with the God of classical theism, but not with the how deism is normally presented.
According to you, I guarantee
according to anyone who wants to go and look on the internet and just look.
So now we're gonna do semantics.
Just look at deism. Look at deism.
So what your claim is? There's not one deist out there that would attribute any omni ability to a God. That's what your claim is.
No, definitely not.
Then why are we on deism?
Because what I said was commonly on the common definition.
And my common definition is that God is omni across the board and would never sit back and allow evil to happen. In fact, it's not only
God hasn't done that. God hasn't done that. God permitting is not the same as sitting back and doing nothing.
Permitting is allowing. Would you say permitting and allowing are synonymous?
Yeah. Well, God allows
so
evil
God
in the world.
Right. So
God
wait a
allows
second.
For a specific objective.
Very good. That's exactly the point to this.
That doesn't negate the evil in the world.
Yes, it
does. Because what you're arguing is.
All right. Wait a second. No.
Oh my fuck! Can't even listen.
My fuck.
You can't listen. Your argument,
me? Are you kidding me?
Listen, your argument has no philosophical depth whatsoever. It doesn't get past kindergarten level.
Exactly. Nice assertion. Although you can't defeat it. Although you can't give me a reason why it doesn't.
I have defeated it. You are conflating. What you're doing is this. You're saying, okay, here's God's standard. God is good. That's an objective fact. Okay. His nature is good. Because God is good, no evil can happen. Even if God creates creatures with free choices by definition being the ability to do evil, where evil is defined as acting contrary to the goodness of God. That's
Which
how
you
I'm
have failed,
defining
which
evil.
you have failed to establish that anyone can act contrary to God's will.
That's it. Well, permissive or directive. We go back to this permissive versus directive, as I said earlier. No one can go against God's will, permissive
thank
or
you.
directive.
Perfect.
But what you seem to be doing is saying all God's will is directive. He directs. God's will is directive, which means God is actively in the world making things happen.
No,
And
I say it doesn't matter.
because it's God making those things happen, by definition, they cannot be evil because God is a directing force behind them. But that completely ignores the fact about God's permissive will, where God doesn't direct an action.
We've talked.
God
We've
doesn't
talked about.
direct the action. God permits an action to
Right.
happen, even if it goes against his objective nature. Wrong.
So God can.
Evil, sin.
So God can act against His own nature.
God doesn't
Okay.
act against his own nature.
Okay.
If
Well,
God
again,
is morally sufficient,
wait. Let's see, because you made the claim. Let's defend it. You said that God can't act against His own nature. If He's omnibenevolent, that means every action He takes must be good. Every
That's
inaction,
definitely.
everything He allows to happen must be good.
Correct.
Therefore, when He allows evil,
Yeah.
that evil cannot be evil, Matt. If He
That's
allows
incorrect.
it.
That's nonsense. That's where your argument falls apart. If God
No,
permits,
that's where.
if God permits evil to happen, it's there's no evil in God for
You
doing
just
that.
said He cannot permit.
So long as God has morally sufficient reasons for allowing that evil to happen.
Which is exactly, now we get back into the car racing down the freeway at 90. Okay. So let's put God in the car and we'll constrain God into not being able to magic His way into saving the child. God is driving the car and needs to do 80 miles an hour to achieve His goal of saving the child. The speed limit is 50 miles an hour. Yeah. Due to God's nature, would God speed or not speed?
God would not speed.
So God would allow an innocent child to die.
On Christian theology, there are no innocent children. There's just sinners.
Okay, and again, we're going to split hairs, and we're going to sit here and define this away.
We're going to be accurate to Christian theology because that's what your argument's directed against.
So let's look at it this way instead. There is a rapist that God did not want to have rape.
That would be all rapists, yeah.
Mary, again.
That would be all rapists.
Really? Okay, so God doesn't want rapists, but He allows rape.
Where did He allow rape?
He allows rape, right?
He permits rape to happen.
And we said that permitting and allowing are synonymous.
God's directive will is for people not to rape. God's permissive will is He will allow that to happen.
Therefore,
for morally sufficient reasons, that does not make rape good.
Okay, then let's explore it from this end. And we've done this 5 times. And again, you seem to forget these problems that keep arising here, Matt. Can God act in a way that is not omni? In other words, can He take actions that are not the best of all possible actions, either actions or allowing things to happen? Can He allow things to do in half measures?
Yeah, omni doesn't mean.
That's why I'm asking.
Omni doesn't mean creates the best possible world or creates the best world He possibly could do.
No. That's not what I'm asking. No. In order to achieve His goal, the actions to achieve that goal that gets Him from, let's say, point A to point B, God being omnibenevolent, there is a single path. There is a path of best actions and inactions that can be taken.
Incorrect.
Okay, so God
omni doesn't mean that. Omni means maximal. Maximally good, maximally powerful.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything about taking the best route to something.
Wait a second. If God is omni and God has a plan, would,
Yeah.
by definition, he not optimize from point
No.
A to... So an omni being, by definition, would not be constrained into optimization?
No, definitely not. Why would
Defend
he be?
that.
Why would he be?
Defend
Why
that.
would he be? I mean, for example, let's say that one of a key fact, a key objective that God wants to bring about is to give an example to humanity of the greatest sacrifice
Right.
that could ever be seen in the universe.
Exactly.
The death of Jesus Christ. Okay?
Right.
But wait a minute. For the death of Jesus Christ to happen and to have effect,
Yep.
evil must be in the world. Because if there's no evil in the world, you don't get to the point where Christ becomes a sacrifice. There's only good in the world. You don't get to that ultimate act of sacrifice.
That's exactly my point.
So what happens is evil is necessary in the world. It's still evil, but it's still evil. It's not good because just because God has a purpose there, which is the ultimate sacrifice.
Exactly
Right.
what I
So
exactly how I started this.
I'm glad you agree then that it's still evil.
Here's the thing. From our limited perspective, like I started this, you're
This is from
absolutely...
God's perspective, not our perspective.
Oh, Matthew.
I'm
You're
not
going to let me
talking about
finish?
from our perspective.
Are you letting me finish? Are you going to let me finish?
What's the point if you're getting things wrong from your first sentence?
Because unless you hear the entire thing, you don't know if I'm wrong or not.
Yeah.
It's like saying that you say, or
That's
I say...
like saying, oh my God, that's like
it's
hearing
like,
someone say,
it's
1
like,
plus 1
Matthew,
equals
I will
3.
dumb it down enough to where you
Well,
can even
1
understand.
plus 1 equals 3, but let me go on and give you an explanation of what I mean.
Right, exactly. That's the whole point.
Fucking
1 plus
stupid.
1, I say the answer is 3, and I say 1 plus 1, and you cut me off and go, you're wrong. Because you didn't let me go 1 plus 1 plus 1. Because you're too...
Just get on with your fucking excuses.
It's not an excuse, Matthew. It's going...
Your argument is pathetic.
It's going... I know, Matthew. And that's why you're having such trouble with it.
There's no trouble. I
know, Matthew. I know. You're right. You're right, Matthew. You're doing so well tonight.
It doesn't take any account.
So well tonight. So let me finish. So you don't need to cut me off. So you don't need to cut me off.
Account the difference between God's permissive and God's directive.
Right. It doesn't.
It's a fucked up argument from the word go to the word finish.
Yep. Okay. So here's the thing. When you are going to, on one hand, define that every action and inaction of God must be good, must be ultimately good, but then you're going to go, we have an omni being that would not optimize, is absolutely laughable.
How so? How so?
Okay. Explain to me.
No. Your claim.
Yes.
Where's the evidence to support your...
My claim is this: we have an omni being. That means optimal. That means the best of all possible.
It doesn't mean that. Omni means the omnis have been defined as either all-powerful, all-knowing, or maximally powerful, maximally knowing, maximally present. Those are common definitions in theology.
Which I would say would be synonymous with exactly what I just said, but hey, I guess not.
Best is a different word from maximum.
So you're telling me that God is not the best of all beings now?
God is the best of all beings.
So now he is the best of all beings. So a minute ago when I said...
for example, here's the optimal route for God to take, okay?
There is no way, Matthew, you can ever tell me what the maximum route is.
Of course.
No, you can't. You're not an omni God.
What is God's ultimate objective on Christian theology is to save the maximum number of people from hell. That's the ultimate goal of Christianity.
Let's say that you're right on that. Now, I don't know how you would know that, but let's say that is right.
Not because it's revealed in the scriptures, but you wouldn't know about the scriptures.
Okay. No, because I didn't go to Oral Roberts University. God's objective is to have as few people in hell as possible. Right.
What he does is basically the optimal way to do that is to create creatures with compatibilist free will and not libertarian free will, because creating people with compatibilist free will means that basically he has some control over things. It's only compatibilist with there. It's not libertarian. They don't have completely free choices. And that means less people are going to freely choose to go against his standard. And the less people who do that, the quicker they get to heaven. That would be optimizing his ultimate objective to get people into heaven by giving them with compatibilist or even without free will. That's an even better way. Like Calvinism, you're going to heaven, you're going to hell. It's all decided. I'm just going to play it out on the earth, and that's it. Optimization.
Right. And if we accept your baseless assertions, then hey, you're right. Because here's the problem, Matt.
Right.
As much as you want to sit here and proclaim to know the mind of God, I would say there's a few scriptures that would guide us away from that ability. In fact, it would probably put you in potentially the realm of heresy, which I think is a commandment.
Molinism,
and not only that, Matthew, but you may not have, even if you have part of the picture correct, there's no way for you to understand if it's a complete picture of what God's plan is. So
I
all of
don't
these,
make claim to know God's plan. Anybody can read the Bible, and anybody can read the Bible and see that it describes God making declarations about evil in the world, something that according to you doesn't exist.
Who created evil? Wait a second. Who created evil?
They can read the New Testament and they can hear Jesus. They can read Jesus' word talking about evil. Okay, right. Something that according to this so-called Christian, in inverted commas, doesn't exist. Evil doesn't exist. It's all good. There are no good.
Wait a second. Just so we're clear on this, who created evil?
Free will. A free will choice created evil.
I would direct you to Isaiah 45:7. Because you're completely wrong on that.
So read that verse out. Let's make a fool of you some more. Go ahead, read it out.
I form the light, I create the darkness, I make the peace, I can create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Which version are you quoting? Is that the King James?
That's King James, brother.
And do you think modern translations have the same thing?
Again, if you want to explain it away through
I'm just asking you the question.
No. This is
what
your
do modern
Bible,
translations have?
This is...
I mean, do you know what opposite? Do you know what opposites are?
Again.
Do you know what opposites are? Light and darkness, peace and evil. You think peace and evil are? Whoa! Just wait a minute.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What you're quoting is 1611 King James language, where evil took on many different connotations, and it doesn't it doesn't reduce itself to moral wrong. It can be how modern translations do it, peace and calamity. God creates peace and calamity.
Oh, so here's what I'm hearing. Here's what I'm hearing, Matthew. God has one document to describe and to prescribe what his creation is to know and to do. And he is so incompetent that he will allow that to be bastardized in such a way that, okay, then explain, because now what you're trying to do is you're trying to say, wait a second, because God said, and create evil, I, the Lord, do all these things. Oh, that can't be correct. That's got to be some problem. That's got to be some misinterpretation, which means God must have allowed that interpretation. God must have allowed that to get out.
Yeah, that's the permissive will of God. Yeah,
exactly. Which you would have to agree that the only reason that he could do that is if he had sufficient reason to allow that lie.
Absolutely not. It's not a lie. In King James, anyone who makes himself familiar with King James Version terminology would read Isaiah 45:7. They would not see in that moral wrong. They would know the difference. They would say, hey, wait a minute. It's like reading Shakespeare. Let's say someone went and read Shakespeare. They're going to read in their words that if you put a modern connotation on them, are going to mean different from what was intended by Shakespeare. But if you familiarize yourself with Shakespeare and you read Shakespeare, that ain't going to happen. There's no lie there in the King James Version. It means the same in the King James Version as it means in the other versions. It doesn't mean God created evil, as in moral wrong. Only indirectly is that true. God indirectly created evil by endowing creatures with free choice in order so that they could make the choice to agree with, to accord with his will or not accord with his will. And creatures...
Which is exactly my point.
Your point, that isn't your point.
In that God, either through permissive or in direct action, created evil, knew he was creating evil, and used that
Incorrect.
tool, and uses that tool to bring about his good and his glory.
Which means that evil still exists.
Which means the evil is a good, in the same way that inoculations are good.
It's not a good.
It's not. Why not?
This is what you're saying. Rape, murder, child abuse, buggery, blasphemy, atheism are all good.
Absolutely.
And the reason
if there's an omni God.
And wait a minute. And the reason they're all good is because ultimately God will make things the way he wants them to be.
No. Whoa. Wait a second. No. Let me clarify. Would you let me clarify? No, the reason I say that is because we're dealing with an omni being who cannot act in any way except through ultimate good.
I already told you, I've already showed you that that's not true.
So ultimate God good, can.
Ultimate good, if God was going to act in ultimate good, why did he endow his creatures with free will? That's not acting with the ultimate good. When you create a situation where the speed limit exists, or the
wait a second, Matthew.
Let's go back to our example. Let's go back to our analogy with the car there.
Yep.
If you were optimizing that, let's say God is this omnipotent being there, and he wants everything to be good there, and he doesn't want evil to be there, then you just make sure you create cars, and you create cars with people in it, and they're not able to exceed the speed limit, whatever the speed limit might be. So even if your child was in danger and you were trying to get to the hospital, if you're on a 70-mile freeway, you physically, the vehicle, you cannot make that vehicle go any faster than whatever the speed limit is there. That's the ultimate God. That's the
no. That's the exact that's the optimization. That's the opposite.
How is it? That's the optimization.
No. Let me explain. Let me explain.
That's the optimal way. Okay. That's the optimal way to ensure that you get to your ultimate objective by not having to deal with people going against your will.
No. Do you want me to show you why?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Because if we take that option of breaking the law out, and I am an omniscient being, I understand that there is going to be a certain number of individuals that will lose their lives due to that constraint. Therefore, if I want to be omnibenevolent and have certain individuals live longer, and because of whatever role I have planned for them, through their free will, I need them to exist. Therefore, I need to allow for the flexibility to, while breaking the law, I am still allowing the person to do good. So in the same way, if I allow people to quote unquote break my directives by quote unquote sinning, it is not evil, it is a good, because they did what I was prescribing. Regardless if they knew it or not, regardless if they knew.
More equivocation, Father. Fallacy of equivocation. What he's doing there, because what you're confusing there, you're using prescription to refer to the ultimate goal of God, but then you're trying to bring it in to refer to every single instance that gets you to that ultimate prescriptive objective of God.
Which is exactly what we had agreed to before, that every God that...
We've not agreed on that at all. There are evils.
So now we're not... Okay, then
I invite... There are examples in the Bible from Genesis through to Revelation where people fail to meet the standard of goodness set by God. You're basically trying to present God as some sort of trickster where he
No,
makes,
not at
of
all.
course you are.
Not at all.
He makes declarations that do not do this.
No.
That's wrong. Do not do this. That's wrong. Jesus has statements in the New Testament where he condemns things like he condemns things like adultery. For those who do these things will spend eternity gnashing on teeth and that kind of stuff. But all that's just, I mean, that's just all a pretense, basically, because what Jesus was really saying there, wink, wink, nod, nod, don't worry about raping people, don't worry about abusing people. Those are good things. Ultimately, God will make something good of it from the end.
You done with the straw man?
That's the dumbest argument.
You're right. You're
presenting.
absolutely right.
Argument. And
You're
that
right,
accurately
Matthew.
represents what you've posted
You're
in this.
right. No, it's not. And that's what's great, is you're really good at constructing straw man.
Analogy.
And I agree that I agree that
Tell me where this analogy is.
If you quit cutting me off, I will.
Just do it. Don't fucking whinge about it. Do it.
I'm not. You're the one whinging. You're the one whining. I'm sitting here all happy and Okay. So in the same way that the speeding analogy would allow for a freer society, a society to where more goodness could take place when necessary, if God, just like he demonstrates, I don't know, through the example I began with in the beginning with David, even though David sinned, even though David did exactly the opposite of what God did, I would say David got rewarded in the end. So God's quote unquote prescriptive law that cannot be broken, that is objective and can never be strayed from, I would say seems to be falling somewhat into obscurity here, because number one, everything that happens due to God's will and God's so now we can thwart the will of an omni-God?
Yeah, sinning is thwarting the will of God.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes, that's what sin is by definition. It's called, the Greek word for sin is called hamartia. It means missing the mark.
Okay. All right. So here's a great question. So if enough of us were to thwart the will of God, would God's plan fall apart?
No.
Good. So in short,
because God has revealed to us in the scriptures that when it gets to the stage where he believes it's getting close to that stage, he will intervene to stop that from happening. He will stop things getting as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the days of the end. People will be doing this, and this, and God will step in and say, enough. My patience with humanity has came to its end. It's now time to bring things to a close, and for people to be punished, to be sent to hell for doing good. That's how ridiculous your argument is. That if everything is good, if there's no evil, people are going to be sent to hell for doing good. Correct?
They're going to be sent to hell in the same way that some player in a movie and a play is killed in the end because that is their role. Okay, yes, and I would. And wait a second. Let me finish. Let me finish, Matthew. In the same way,
you're back to determinism.
You're right. What I said. If you would let me finish.
You're back to determinism.
No, you go ahead, Matthew, because apparently you're much more important than me. You just.
I am definitely am. I'm far more intelligent than you, and far more able to critique a dumb fuck argument. This would not pass muster. This would not pass muster beyond a philosophy 101 course.
Again, you want to play both sides of the fence. You want to say that. Well, let's examine what you said there, because when you said that God reacts to man. And reacts to what?
Theism.
Again, Matthew.
That's only on open theism.
I'm waiting until you're finished so I can at least make a point.
Yeah, we'll try and make your points accurate, and I won't need to correct you.
Are you thinking, or what's going on? I'd like to know when I could go.
You can go anytime you want. You can fuck off for all I care. This is a dumb shit argument.
Yeah, ad hom. Thank you. Here's the thing. When You want to prescribe that God cannot act in an evil manner, cannot allow through inaction evil
That's
through
incorrect.
his direct inaction allow evil.
Incorrect.
Okay, how can an omnibenevolent God allow, in the same way that we talked about before with me permitting A rape to happen?
By having morally
How is that?
sufficient reasons for doing so.
Exactly. So when we're
No,
talking,
exactly. Having morally sufficient reasons
right,
to
that
allow evil in the world.
means
That means evil exists.
that means in the same way that I'm breaking the speed limit to save the child, I am doing a good, even though from a technical and semantic standpoint, I broke the law.
Yeah, you break
It is
the law.
still a good.
It's not a good. What if you're speeding and the motivation is good in order for why you're breaking the law, but the
And the
fact
motivation,
you are
and the
still
motivation,
breaking the law. The
and
same
the
as
motive, and the
God
motivation of
permitting
and the motivation of an omni God must be good and must come to
Yes.
fruition.
Yes.
Therefore, his
There's
inaction
still evil in the
is
world.
good, and his inaction is
Of
good.
course, no one is denying that. No one is saying God's
Thank
permissive.
you.
No one is saying God's inaction is
You
not
are.
good. No, absolutely not. God's inaction is good in permitting people to be raped, but
Right.
if he has morally sufficient reasons
That's
for
the
permitting
argument
that.
that you're now.
But the rape itself is not a good. The rape itself, I mean, if it was a good, there would be no permissive will of God, because God wouldn't need to permit something, it would be good. It would be in conformity with his nature.
Everything.
Only if evil exists, does it need to be the case that God permits things that are not within his directive will to happen.
Okay. Again, we agreed that God created everything and creates everything, including
I
our
know, I
free
never
will.
agreed to that.
Oh my God. Yeah, you did. But
I said God creates
So now,
everything apart from himself, and I made the clarification that means either directly or indirectly.
okay,
And
sorry,
evil is
Matthew.
one of the
Matthew, you're
things.
right. You're right. You
Evil
did say
is one
that,
of the
everything
things
except for
he
himself. Thank you.
And evil is one of the things God is created directly,
Which means
he
is
endowed creatures with free will, the ability to say
can
no to God, to sin,
can
to commit evil. God gave
can
them that choice to commit evil. Let me ask
can
you a question.
I'm trying to ask you one, but go ahead,
Wait a minute.
Matthew.
On free will,
Mhm.
if God endows creatures with free will, and that's
Mhm.
libertarian free will, can they
Mhm.
exercise libertarian free will to commit an evil?
Apparently, yes.
What do you mean apparently? Either yes or no.
Well, the problem is number one, asserting your. When I say apparently, I am, for argument's sake, saying that libertarian free will is as described, libertarian without bound. Everything is any decision I want to make, I can make. Okay.
Yeah.
Number one, establishing that is
I'm
impossible.
not trying to establish it.
Okay, again, that's why I said apparently, from our perspective, what would seem to be a bad action occurs. Yes.
Right. And we call that evil, right?
We do, absolutely.
What does God call it?
God, because he created it and
No.
I'm trying to get there, Matthew.
God never created evil. You're back to your wrong interpretation of Isaiah
You just
45
said
and
that
7.
through his permissive nature, he created evil.
No, I never said
that.
that. I said through God created evil indirectly through endowing human beings or even the angelic host with libertarian free will.
Right. So God created it. I don't care how it got here, Matthew. No. You're not gonna weasel out of this. I'm gonna pin you down here because I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
If I create a car and due to my incompetence or due to my malicious nature, I create a car that is going to harm other people. It will, let's say, act like the Pintos did back in the late 70s and blow up whenever someone taps a bumper. I have foreknowledge. I have foreknowledge of that.
Free will is not like a defective motor.
The suffering that was created because of the libertarian free will of the individuals that chose that vehicle is still attributable to me.
I know, because where that analogy breaks down, the analogy breaks down there is in thinking of free will as something like a defective motor.
No, that's not what. No.
If free will means the ability to choose A over not A, so let's say you've got an example.
Ability to choose
when God creates the first creatures, those first creatures they have not broken God's standards of goodness. They can either make the free choice to remain in compliance with God's standard of goodness.
Exactly my analogy.
Or they can make the free choice. But here's the point, though. Here's the point, though. If they chose to maintain that standard, it negates the sacrifice of Christ on the cross, the greatest example of a living sacrifice. So in that sense, the free will, whether it's exercised positively or negatively,
it's good.
Yeah, ultimately, of course, that's good. No one is saying that, but the choice to disobey, the actual, let's say the first sin was to rape. What you're saying is, you're basically saying rape is good. That's what you're saying. With an omnibenevolent being that permits it to happen, and arguably uses it as part of his plan. Yes, it has to be good. It's not part of his plan for people to rape. That's what you did it wrong.
And wait a second. Justify that. How can you?
How do you know?
No. I'm asking you.
Mormonism is the view that God knows every creature's free will.
I understand that. We've gone over it 5 times.
He does not plan for a person to rape someone. He foresees that a person will rape someone.
Thank you. Great.
So he doesn't.
Now, wait.
Planning.
Did God create the individual that raped?
Indirectly, yes, through the process of evolution.
Did he allow that? Does he have the power to intercede and either change the individual or change the circumstances to make that rape not occur?
Yes, he has the power.
There you go. Then nothing else.
It would be a violation by God of libertarian free will for him to so act.
And okay, so what you're saying is libertarian free will is more important than God's will.
No, God's will is libertarian.
Okay, well here's the thing. In the same way, Matthew, that if I was to walk down the street and find the woman being raped, I would, let's say, to be charitable, take that person's free will that is trying to rape them. Yes, my morals.
No, you wouldn't.
My morals. Wait, Matthew.
Not if you were a Christian.
My moral.
Not if you were a Christian.
Again, you're right. If I was a Christian, I couldn't make that decision because.
You couldn't make that decision. You would not do anything.
Exactly.
That's a good thing.
You have to. That's why I'm saying that's one of the reasons that I am agnostic, and that's one of the reasons that I use naturalistic drivers as my moral guide. Now, here's the thing, Matthew. Stop.
What is your moral guide?
Here's the thing, Matthew. Here's the thing. In the same. We can discuss that sometime if you would like to. So if you, again, that's you can laugh all you want, but it seems to be a little superior because right now it's proving that as a rape victim, I would much rather have me walking down the street than you. Because here's the thing. Here's the
argumentum ad absurdum. What he's suggesting is that if a Christian is walking down the street, that on his silly argument, the right thing for the Christian to do is just to say, oh, well, enjoy yourself there, mate. Enjoy yourself there, mate. You're doing God's will. That's good. That's a good thing you're doing there. Absolute nonsense.
What I came on here to ask you is to demonstrate why that would not be the correct action.
I've done that.
No, you haven't even come close to that. You
Your
can't even.
argument-
You can't
your
even
argument-
state. You can't even state.
Your argument is the dumbest argument I've ever seen. No
Again,
philosopher.
ad hom,
no
ad hom.
philosopher. I mean, this is his argument in
I've got
summary.
at least four that
Wait a
will.
minute. Let me
I've got
read his
four.
argument. Let me read his argument in summary. In short, if God's plans result in the ultimate good, then every action that brings that to fruition must be the greatest of all goods. But due to a limited perspective, we can't understand that is actually the case. That's
Thank
straight
you.
from his argument there.
That's exactly
in short.
it.
The
That's-
problem is it's
you're
a
right.
non sequitur argument. It fails right away. It doesn't follow that if
How?
what he's arguing
Why
is
not? Why not?
he's arguing this. He's arguing the end justifies the means.
No, not at all.
Yes, you are.
No,
God has an end goal, right? God has an end goal.
Again, when you said okay, fight your straw man, show everybody how good you are against the straw man. Go ahead. No, go kill the straw man. Go get him, Matt. You're the man on the straw man. Go ahead.
You agree God has an end goal, right?
Absolutely.
And God uses means to get there.
Well, apparently, isn't that what the Bible tells you?
And the means he uses appear to us to be evil.
From our limited perspective, I would say that we would all agree that there are actions that seem evil to us. Would you dispute that?
From God's perspective, those means are just to an end.
They have to be if he's omni.
Right. So the means justify the end.
No.
Okay, why not?
Again, there's the non sequitur. Wow, that is the cherry.
So why does it not fall?
You call a non sequitur on my end, and then use one to try to show that it's non sequitur.
Why doesn't it follow then?
Because you're making the assertion that I am saying that God is using these to justify some end goal. No,
yeah, he is.
Okay.
Yes.
If you want that to be the argument, then publish that.
Go ahead and argument. That's your argument.
No, that's what I'm saying. If you want to argue my argument,
you're saying from God's perspective.
Go ahead.
You're saying that from God's perspective, when he sees someone raping, he sits back and he says, not going to do anything on that because it's going to get to at the end of it's a means to a purpose. That person there who's doing that rape, they're just playing a role and they're playing out the role, and I'm permitting it to happen. It's a good thing and it's to an ultimate good. That's in fact you basically stated if God's plan results in the ultimate good.
On the straw man.
God's plan is the means. God's plan is what gets to the ultimate end, right? Yeah?
Are you asking me or are you still on the straw man?
I'm asking you, yeah.
I've told you at least a dozen times, Matthew.
God's plan results in the ultimate good. Is that your words of your argument?
Okay, I'll ask you.
I'm asking you. Is that the words of your argument?
Would it be possible for an omnibenevolent God with a plan to have any other result?
No.
Good. We agree.
And how does that prove anything about evil not existing in the world?
Because, Matthew, again, if God is omni, and again, I am allowing God more freedom than you are. I am allowing God to use any and every tool that he has constructed or allowed through his to exist to bring to fruition as quickly and as efficiently as possible his plan. Is exactly what we'd expect from an omniscient being.
Including
evil, which means the use of that evil, the prescribed use of that evil has to be a good. If one more person ends up suffering, because if God was to take evil away, there would be less people, there would be a lesser good achieved, then it would not be the ultimate of all good.
Define the word evil for us.
I don't care how you describe
I'm asking your definition.
Well, mine's going to be completely opposite to yours, probably, because mine's a
Just
naturalistic.
you've been asked to
Mine's a
give your
natural.
definition of evil.
Which, okay, mine would be from the naturalistic type understanding of humans, and mine would be more from a flourishing aspect and a pleasure versus pain aspect. Again, as laughable as you want to say me, believing that you've got a magic sky daddy that is playing with little boats on a planet with a couple of little animals around is not laughable. Okay, Matthew.
So evil is a good. The good is human flourishing, and the evil is anything that doesn't get to that match up with that standard, right?
Any unnecessary cause of human suffering, the retardation of human flourishing, either from an educational, from an epistemological standpoint, across the board, anything that takes away from the human experience unnecessarily, I would consider evil. Yes.
So atheism then?
Yeah.
Because atheism takes away from ultimate human flourishing.
And how do you get there?
Because ultimate human flourishing would be living eternally.
Only
with
if, again, only if you accept the premise that God exists, and at that point you're not an atheist anymore.
So
wait a second, stop. Stop.
So it's actually an atheistic moral system, Ian. Yep.
No, Matthew, because again, I can use the same flourishing model, because if I believe that God exists, then I incorporate whatever the maximum flourishing, of course, heaven apparently in this place would be to achieve that. So it's the same model.
But then anything that fell short of that, by definition, would be evil.
Okay, because you're not, unnecessarily. Unnecessarily. You forget that little word.
It's not necessary.
You don't know that, Matthew. You know it. You prescribe to know the mind of God.
Okay.
How do you know that God cannot? So you're telling me that God cannot use rape for the betterment of His plan
I'm saying that God has given commandments about actions.
That's not again. Now we're conflating. Now we're conflating law. We're conflating law.
God has given commandments based on His objectively good nature. God gives commandments. Do not do this. Do not do that. What you're asking is, what you're suggesting is that when God says, "Do not murder," then it's okay to murder because that's a good.
So do you.
Here's the thing, absolutely not. When God says, "Do not murder," God is giving a decree for us not to do something.
I know what God is telling us, Matthew.
Because it doesn't meet the standard of goodness. It's the opposite from good. It's evil. That's why God says, "Do not do that." If everything was a good and there was no evil,
you're absolutely conflating.
If everything was good and there was no evil, then there'd be no need for God to give commandments not to do things, because everything was good.
Again, you're conflating, Matthew.
Well, wait a minute.
You're conflating law. You're conflating law with good.
Let me clarify my thinking. On your view of Christianity, on this idea of God, there are no evils, right? From God's perspective.
Yep.
Okay, so there are no evils. So everything is good from God's perspective, right?
Exactly.
So if everything is good from God's perspective, why would God give out moral, thou shalt not do this, in regards to behaviors among human beings, which is morality? If it's good, why prohibit it?
Let me answer. Can I answer?
If it's good, why prohibit it? That's the question. Answer that question.
I'm trying to. You have to shut up long enough to hear the answer, Matthew.
Go ahead.
Apparently, God needed to do that. Why? I don't know. Because unlike you, I don't know. Because unlike you, I don't assume to know the mind of God.
Okay, that's fair. But here's the question for you: are you saying you cannot give an answer as to why God would give out commandments not to do things if everything was good? You've no answer for that, right?
from my limited perspective, in the same way that I don't understand why I view human suffering and children, if God exists, dying, in my opinion, unnecessarily, as an evil, just in the same way that a 5-year-old could not understand why the shot is a good. You're absolutely right. I don't know the mind of God, and I can't describe why or give prescription to why God mandates certain things. Now, apparently you can, Matthew.
Okay,
So
wait a minute.
apparently
This is
you are God.
interesting. No, this is interesting because we've got two hypotheses here, right? Hypothesis one says there are no evils. Everything is a good, and it doesn't matter how it looks from our perspective. From
Correct.
God's perspective, everything is good because it meets an ultimate end, God's plan. Okay, that's one hypothesis.
Yep.
On the other hypothesis, there's this objective standard of goodness, which is God's nature, and there are things which are the opposite of God's standard, and we call those things evils. Okay? Now,
No, that's your description.
yeah, that's why I'm saying there's two hypotheses. I gave yours.
Okay.
Now
All
I'm
right, keep
giving
going.
mine.
Sorry. I didn't know you were on the second
But
hypothesis.
I'm giving the Christian theologian's view. So now,
That's
how do
okay.
we separate these hypotheses from most likely to be the case? Well, there's a defect in one of the hypotheses.
Exactly.
It postulates something for which there is no answer to a given question about why
No,
on that
both.
hypothesis. Well,
Both do that.
on your hypothesis, why
Both
would
do that.
God give out moral dictates about human behavior? Do not do this, do not do that. You've said on your
don't know.
hypothesis, you do not know. You have no answer to that.
Right.
However,
In the same way that you don't have, in the same way that the second hypothesis falls short on a myriad of questions.
On the other hypothesis, the person is taking the view that there's a standard of goodness, and anything that falls short of that standard is an evil, then they can answer as to why God gives out those commands and dictates, because God is telling us these are the things I don't want you to be doing. These are not good. These don't meet the standard of my nature. So on one hypothesis, there's no answer to why God gives out moral decrees. On the other one, there is an answer to why God gives out moral decrees. So you should favor the one that can explain more, has more explanatory power and scope.
Oh, that's the problem, Matthew. Whoa, wait a second. Great. Let's wrap that. Let's absolutely go there. So with the explanatory model and trying to use it to get a better understanding of our realm, our existence, which of these two hypotheses, as you put it, incorporate more of the descriptive nature of God? Well,
the second one.
No, because
there is no standard. God has no standard of goodness on the first one. On
yes,
God's on the
yes,
first one.
He does. Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't, because wait a minute.
Go get your straw man. Straw man Matthew, go get him. Go get that straw man Matthew. He's burning. Go get him. You got your pitchfork. Go fast. Hurry.
On the first hypothesis,
ridiculous.
On God's standard, from God's perspective, on your hypothesis, is rape good or evil?
From God's perspective,
yes.
There is a prescriptive good. That's why God does everything, because he is good.
Right, but there are no evils.
Not from God's perspective,
exactly. No. So on your hypothesis.
No. Wait a second. Let me clarify that. There could be evils out there. The thing is that from our perspective,
there shouldn't be evils out there.
Are you going to listen? Are you going to, again, you want to fight the straw man and prescribe this God and prescribe this and say, no, it couldn't have any.
There's no evils on your hypothesis.
No, I didn't say that, Matthew. What I said
is. There are evils, right?
Can you listen?
Yeah,
I said
I'm talking about God's perspective, not ours perspective.
If you will listen, Matthew, again.
Answer from God's perspective. I'm not interested in our.
We would not. There could absolutely be evil. We just would not be privy to what is evil from God's perspective.
So rape could be evil then, right?
If God used it for good, yes.
So if God used it for good, there could still be evils.
There, again, Matthew, if you need to shut up long enough to hear the entire thing, or it's not going to make sense. We have two beings. One is privy to a certain knowledge, certain amount of knowledge. The other ones may be able to see part of that knowledge, but cannot be all inclusive. Humanity, we only are privy to a certain amount of knowledge. God knows all. Therefore, there could be evils that are a subset that are only privy to him. But if he is going to create a universe through his omnibenevolence that achieves only the ultimate good, then from his perspective, anything that took place through his actions, because he is omnibenevolent, can only be good.
Right,
He
so there are
cannot,
no evils then.
in our world, no, but not in God's existence. God can have
But-
multiple evils out there.
Okay, so what you're saying is that God has there's an objective standard of goodness, which is God's nature.
No.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, you define God as omnibenevolent, maximally good.
Right.
That's part of your definitions.
Right.
He's a maximally good being, an all good being.
Okay, and again, from God's perspective, yes. From ours, no.
Right.
We
But from
cannot.
God's perspective, name something that could be an evil from God's perspective.
I am not privy to that information.
Right.
I'm not
So
omniscient.
again, what
Are
we have
you?
is what we have again is on the hypothesis we have a deficiency, we have a lack of planetary power to answer. So there is nothing there's nothing he can name here which would be an evil from God's perspective. And the other thing is when he talks about knowing the mind of God,
Oh my God.
if he's arguing against Christian theology, we know the mind of God because God has revealed his mind through the scriptures, through our conscience, and through the church, the universal church. So using those three methods, we know that God has said.
So now, Matthew, the Scotsman is omniscient, everyone. He has just elevated himself to God and having ultimate knowledge of everything.
So we know that God has given out. We know that God has given out moral decrees. Do not murder. Do not steal. All of those moral decrees that we know of contained in the scriptures, which is supposed to be
every one of those,
which on Christian theology is God revealing to us His will for us. God says. So what you need to do is just apply Occam's razor to these two hypotheses here.
And again, he won't let me. Again, he won't let me talk.
You've got a hypothesis that contradicts the Bible itself.
No, it actually follows the Bible a lot closer than what you're doing.
Absolutely. The Bible nowhere says rape, child abuse, murder is right and
where
good
exactly? Where exactly is it prescribed that rape is wrong in the Bible?
Jesus' words: "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you."
Oh, well, wait a second. What if I enjoy being raped, Matthew?
Well, if you enjoy being raped, I suggest you seek out.
No, golden rule, Matthew.
Yeah,
then it's good,
rule.
right?
Yeah,
then
it's a guideline. Right? It's a guideline for moral behavior.
Now it's just a guideline. It's not an objective prescription.
It's easily.
But wait a second. I thought God was objective, Matthew.
But wait a minute.
What happened to the objective nature of Christ?
Again,
you're ridiculous.
What you're conflating, objective nature of Christ. Of course, God's nature was objective. Everyone's nature is objective. It's mind independently true. You exist as a human being. That's an objective fact. It's not something that's not a subjective opinion. That's what you are by virtue of your very existence. You are a human being. God is a omnibenevolent being. And what this argument that he's presenting here, what it does is it robs God, or in fact, it robs the word goodness of any meaning. Because on his definition, or on his argument, goodness is voided of any demarcating actions. Every action in our world is a good action. So if you want to hold to his argument, then if you see rape or murder or genocide or child
Again,
abuse, all of those actions are good from God's perspective on
yep.
his definition. However,
Again, Matthew, if an omnibenevolent being,
again, I've already refuted that nonsense argument. That argument's dead in the
again,
water.
no, you haven't. You've danced around it, and you've
That's what
just because you want to assert that you're right does not mean you're right.
Well,
It
again,
is hilarious how
I
you
think
sit
that
here
was-
and will
Yes.
sit there
I
and
think
try
you're-
to
I
use.
think MK
Wait a second,
MK you should bring other
Matthew.
people into
No,
the
no,
hangout.
no, wait a second.
I think we have done this
Wait.
argument to death. People can make
Oh,
up
so now
their
you're
own
gonna
mind.
run away. Have a good day
No,
at night,
but
Matt.
keep
We'll
on
go
away.
to somebody that's a little more intelligent and a little bit more well schooled in this.
Your
Go away, Matthew. Have a good night.
Buried. Your argument's been buried.
Again. Yes, again.
Like, you could have an
I
after-
know you think it has, Matthew, and I'm so happy that you believe.
Yeah.
You want to say that you buried this. You're the champion.
Yeah,
of
it
this.
is. But
I know, Matthew, because you're
support this
amazing.
argument.
Just like
Dumb as fuck
okay.
argument. It's a stupid argument.
I know, Matthew. And again, the ad
It's been
hom
roundly
is
refuted.
the ad hom is great, but again,
Ad hominem is
when you bring nothing, when you bring nothing,
is when you attack the person rather than the argument. I've destroyed your argument.
I know, Matthew.
All I'm doing is pointing out
I'm
how
sure,
stupid the argument is.
and I'm sure that you're convinced of that. But no one
As well
that actually would follow
If
and
God is
understand,
Oh my
and
God.
that would understand that by defining a God as omniscient
Yeah.
and then omnibenevolent and omnipowerful, omnipotent, that God is constrained to acting in only good ways.
The problem is
then, because you're going to cut me off, and then by prescribing that this God has created everything in this universe, you have defined everything as good. That's your own definition.
Nonsense. I haven't done.
And again, because you can't.
That's just a straw man. Keep putting the pitchfork into your straw man.
Right. Yeah. Show me how God can act in an evil way, Matthew.
God can't act in an evil way.
There you go. You proved it. Thank you.
That means then that God cannot act by calling evil good and good evil. In fact, it's called this. The unforgivable sin is to attribute to God the things that are of Satan.
And there's the conflation.
And the things that are from Satan in fact, Satan doesn't exist on this argument because Satan is the epitome. Satan on this argument.
Again, there's your straw man.
Satan is the epitome of evil, but evil doesn't exist, so Satan cannot exist.
Again,
there is no evil.
Again,
Satan's a good guy, right?
That's the exact opposite of the whole deal. Just because I have a hammer.
Does evil exist?
Can I answer?
Yeah, you can answer my question. On your hypothesis, does evil exist from God's perspective? No.
Right.
There we go. So
can I explain how Satan can exist now?
On that, real quick, please. Thanks for letting me jump in. Matt, I'm thinking maybe we could give Shamos the floor for a while now.
Yeah, good stuff.
But let me address the Satan deal. In the same way that I have a hammer in my workshop, and that hammer can be used to build or it can be used to destroy. Depending on how I decide to use that hammer, whatever my objective may be, the hammer itself is not evil, nor is it good. It is just a tool. Satan is the exact same as far as God is concerned. It is
absolute nonsense.
Again, Matthew, your assertion that it's true does not reflect what we see in the Bible and what we see as far as God's directive as God's plan coming to fruition, in that he would use individuals and his angelic realm to achieve whatever his goal is. That is directly reflective of what God tells us and what is depicted in the Bible. But you want to get away from that because you want to have this independent player that can thwart the will of God and act contrary to God all the time, claiming that God is omniscient and omnipowerful. Again, how can I have been talking to you for over 2 hours now, and you are so incompetent that you can't keep up with the entire premise with the
You
entire
can't
premise,
use words.
that evil cannot exist.
You
So
didn't
how
say
can,
that. You said from God's perspective, evils
right?
might exist. That's what
Yes,
you said.
evil
If,
cannot
as
exist
you
from
said,
with the
you
existence of
said
it.
God
Morality
created
becomes
evil,
meaningless because everything is
yeah,
good.
which is a stupid fucking argument.
You just sit there again.
I mean,
I expose that you
did you
completely
learn any
are arguing
logic?
opposite. You are
Do,
completely.
do you claim yourself to
You
be
are
well informed
completely.
on logic? Wait a minute. Do you
You are
claim?
completely. You are.
Do you claim to
You
be
are.
well informed on logic?
Again, I would say I'm a layman. That's not my
Okay.
field of
Do
study,
you
and
know
it
what the law
wasn't.
of do you know what the law of identity is?
Oh, Matthew. Again, what does
Yes
this
or
have to do?
no? Do
Yes,
you
I
know what
do.
the law of
What does it
okay?
have to do?
Okay.
I'm not going. What does it have to do
So
with my argument?
okay. So the law of identity is a thing
Oh
is
my
equal.
God. So I
A
say
thing
yes, and
is
now he's going to give us a definition so we
yeah.
should look smart.
For people
Show
who
us how
maybe not.
smart you are. Show us
No,
how smart you are,
this is
Matthew.
for people who maybe don't know. So a law of identity is a
Or
thing is
have access to
a
Google,
thing
apparently.
a thing is equal to its own nature. Okay, that's
Yep.
the law of identity.
Which is
So
exactly what I'm arguing for.
so yeah, but the thing is, here's the thing though, we can put this into a valid deductive argument. So the valid
And I
deductive
have.
argument would be modus ponens, and that would be if evil X produces greater good Y, then X is still evil. Now the reason for that is because of the law of identity. Let's say
No,
you've got
you haven't
let's say you've
defined
got a
evil. All you've said,
I
all
did
you've done
define evil.
is
I
no, you
defined
didn't.
evil earlier
All
on.
you
I defined it. I defined evil earlier on as that which falls short, which falls short from the objective nature of God's goodness.
exactly, and everything
Right.
is reflective of God's
Again,
objective nature.
but
Therefore,
then
nothing can be
right.
evil. You've just
Exactly.
argued for my
Which means
premise.
like
Maybe you
murder,
didn't hear
child
what you
abuse.
said.
He believes that on a Christian perspective.
Maybe you didn't
There is
hear
not a
what you
single
said.
Christian in the
Okay, go
world.
ahead. Keep going
There's
because
not
you
a
know you screwed up.
single.
You were just going to
There's not a
walk away from it like it never
in
happened.
the world
Run,
who would buy
run, Maddie.
into this
Run, Maddie. Run
bullshit fucking
fast.
argument. In
God,
fact,
you're a joke.
and the most important thing about this argument does not establish anything against objective morality.
No, it doesn't.
Objective, well, on the discussion you had with MK
From an
on
ultimate.
preparing this hangout, or on the chat you have with Michael, you were basically promoting that you've got an argument that shows on certain views in Christianity there cannot be objective morality.
You're right.
But nothing in your argument negates. I mean, if morality is grounded in the nature of God,
We've only been
the
talking
nature of
2 hours, and you just cannot get it, can you?
the nature of
Amazing.
something, the
The
nature of something
willful
is
ignorance,
objective.
the
The
ability to
nature of something
completely
is objective, and if
forget
God's
everything
goodness,
that was said
exactly,
is just amazing
your
to me.
argument's fucked. I mean, you should go and spend
No,
your time with Shamos, because Shamos likes to try and. You
I
should just
will
fuck
let-
off back to the drawing board, try and get an argument that's going to get past kindergarten level 101 philosophy, and come back to us when you've got a serious argument to present.
Because apparently you can't understand kindergarten level.
Well, this argument's dead in the water.
I know,
Absolutely
Matt.
dead.
I
In fact,
know.
it never even got
so
off
bad.
the ground. If I constructed an argument like, I would be so.
Oh, you
laughed
are
at to
amazing.
the highest heaven.
What is so funny is
Let's go back
you
to the
don't
drawing board. Okay?
you don't understand that
Go back to the drawing board.
that you've argued for the argument like 5 times.
Absolutely
With
not.
the entire time, completely
Not a single
oblivious,
time.
completely
Evil exists.
oblivious to
On Christian theology, evil exists, and God is still omnibenevolent. As in Romanism, as on Calvinism, as in Arminianism.
I need to clarify. one claim that you made about.
You're done in this hangout.
Oh, well, you're done. You go run away and hide. I know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
You're going to sit there and talk over people, call everybody stupid, act like you're the moral superior, and then run away and hide and go, I don't know, stroke yourself off to the Bible and think that, oh my God, I am so smart. You're a joke, Matthew. That's why I don't deal with you. That's why for 6 years I have
run away. That's why you've been running for 6 years.
I've been Matthew
running for 6 years. Keep on running, boy. Keep on running, boy.
Who has
Keep on running, boy.
Exactly. I'm the one running away. I'm the one that said I'm done with the. I'm the one that said I'm done with the hangout. Oh,
Yeah,
that was you, wasn't it?
the argument's been
I'm
reiterated
the.
and reiterated and
I'm.
reiterated and refuted and
You're.
refuted and
You're the
refuted
one. You're the
time
one.
after time after time.
You're the
This
one
is a
who
shit
after.
argument.
You're the
This
one.
is
You're
a
the
shit
one.
argument that doesn't pass
Again,
philosophical
I
101 with.
know you want to claim that, Matthew. Have fun with it. But
But
I'm the one who, and again, I'm sure you've quote unquote forgotten this,
yeah,
but this argument is well over 2 years old. And when
yeah,
I first
it was
started
shit the
this,
first time and it's
when
still
I
shit
when
now.
I when I first when I first constructed this, because someone gave me your name after
Yeah,
this
yeah,
was first
yeah,
published, and you happened to be someone I was unfamiliar with. I posted it to your
yeah.
channel. You ignore it. I come back and ask you about it, and you say, I don't address things that I don't think are worthy. So
Yeah,
then
because it
a
was a
year,
piece of
and
shit
then
the
and then
first
and
time and
then
it's a
and
piece of
then
shit now.
and then a year later, you specifically put out a challenge video asking about morality. I repost it, and you again run away and hide from it
Actually
instead of just
not. Actually not. In the great debate community, I challenged you.
instead of
In the great
no.
debate community, I issued you a challenge to you and you declined the invitation.
No, I didn't. Why would
Yeah,
I
you
be
fuck
here? Why,
absolutely so. Absolutely did. In the great
Matthew?
debate community, which has only been going for a year.
Matthew, I have never declined a debate in my life. I have debated
This is not a
freaking.
debate.
Okay,
You've debated nobodies. Ted
exactly,
fucking
because there's
Hovind.
nobody out there,
Ted
including
fucking
yourself.
Hovind. Absolutely not.
Exactly my
You have,
point, Matthew.
you have tried to
Exactly
win
my
an
point.
argument. You've tried to win an argument tonight that's been, as much as you're going to still go with a stupid fucking argument, has been
Again, it's a stupid
destroyed.
fucking argument
When
because you can't
Shamos,
refute it in any way, shape, or
when
form. In fact, everything you
Shamos will
say
never
bolsters
agree
it.
with you. Shamos will never agree you that evil does not exist if God is omnibenevolent.
Again,
No philosopher will
the
agree.
ridiculous, the
No
absolutely
philosopher will agree with that.
ridiculous,
Or not
unbelievable
even anyone well
inability for you
informed
to
on philosophy.
understand how counterproductive and how absolutely asinine
Yeah.
that statement alone is just amazing.
Well, but you make the statement, there is no evil.
Right.
Right. You wait until you
Refute
present that
that.
to
Refute it, Matthew, without a
It's already
cert,
been refuted.
without a completely
It's already been
baseless.
refuted. Time after time after time. It's been
And
refuted.
that's what is so laughable.
Yeah.
Is you honestly
You
believe
can
that.
believe that. No one will support your dumb fuck
Oh my
argument.
God. You are the most, for you to actually believe that
Yeah.
is,
You
I
can
mean,
believe
nothing
what
but
you want.
laughable. I don't
I'm
know what
done
else
with
to do
you.
except laugh.
You're a dumb
What,
fuck.
I mean, okay, put it as succinctly as possible, Matthew. If it's been so thoroughly refuted, it should be 2 plus 2. I mean, go ahead. I'm waiting. I'm seriously. Go ahead. That's what I thought. You are a joke, big guy. You sit there and make these assertions. And then when I challenge you to actually step up and go, yes, this is why it's refuted. Oh, it's just a shit argument. It's just a shit argument. You are a joke. Holy crap. Michael, I'm sorry, man. I usually don't get this animated, but when it comes to idiots like this, I just cannot stand being talked over. So that's why I was hoping you would vet the people that you would bring on here and have people that actually have some intellect and actually have some class. I would highly recommend in the future, stay away from Matt. He's considered a joke across the board. Everyone laughs at him because there's nothing else to do. So Michael, was there anybody else, or did you want to talk to this, or was there anything? I mean, I'll be more than willing to, you know, continue. I mean, Matthew's just going to sit here and rant and call it stupid, so it's pointless from that perspective.
From this point, Matt did drop out, and I continued the conversation with someone else. I may end up cutting that out if anyone's interested. If not, you can pick that up at about the 3-hour mark on MK's channel. Again, I feel I need to apologize. I did get very unprofessional there at the end. I do feel like I crossed the line. So for my viewers, sorry. But the likes of Matt Bell tend to bring that out in me. And that's a shortcoming of mine that I absolutely need to work on. I'll try to do better in the future. Thanks again for watching. I hope you all find truth, not capital T truth.